So we're talking college football tonight. Some spring thoughts on three teams here. It's going to be South Carolina, Auburn, and the Texas A&M Aggies. We've got our main man Sweets who just joined in too. So it's going to be an awesome episode tonight. And I'm going to get the ball rolling with the Gamecocks. First and foremost, they made a change at offensive coordinator, brought in Kendall Briles, which I think is a good move, but I am low on their quarterback this year at South Carolina. I do not think Lenore Sellers is an SEC quarterback. He would probably be better off at a group of five school coming off the performance he had last season. But I'm going to digress a little bit and talk about them as a whole as well. Good news for the Gamecocks is 12 of their 18 signees from the recruiting class were on campus in the spring, participating in spring drills. So that's a big move for them in the right direction. Landon Duckworth, who freshman quarterback coming in, would not surprise me if he's QB1 by week 8 or 9 this year. You know, they do have Cutter Woods, who's going to be their number two to start the season, but I don't have much faith in QB1 and QB2. Shane Beamer has not built this team the way that he's talked about for the last couple of years, at least from the offensive standpoint. On defense, they're going to have Dylan Stewart back, who's probably one of the best edges in all of college football. Um, in the this secondary, they'll have Gerald Kilgore back, and probably my favorite special teams guy in all of college football, and Bakari Swain back at the cornerback position. I've heard some reports through spring that Matt Fuller has had a phenomenal spring. He was the offensive most valuable player in spring ball. So with nobody losing a few guys at running back, they're really going to need Matt Fuller to step up this year. Then I look at their offensive line, kind of a piece together offensive line, lost some guys from last year. They bring in Carter Miller at center, who's a group of four or group of five transfer. They bring Emmanuel Kojo Poku, East Carolina transfer, and then they did strike some gold with Jacarius Peak. I think I think highly of him on the offensive line. But with as much as Lenore Sellers got hit last year, I think their offensive line takes a step back. I think Kendall Briles is fine at calling plays, really good at calling, but I don't know if there's an offensive coordinator in the country who could right this offensive ship we're going to see at South Carolina this year. Defense is going to be solid. I mentioned a few guys, but I want to jump and see if anybody else has any thoughts on this Gamecock team.
Um,
So I think they're going to be improved.
Go ahead, Kev. Go
I,
ahead.
I really like I really like the addition of Bryles. And 2 years ago their offense wasn't inept, and Sellers was the quarterback. And so and when you look at the offense that he runs, you want a dual threat quarterback that's big and that can throw the football and throw it to all sides of the field. And Sellers can do that. Last year they were so bad because their offensive line was bad. And Mike Shula's not been a good offensive coordinator any stop he's been at. Just an absolute poor hire. I think Bryles and Sellers. I think Sellers is talented, and I think he will perform well. Now, do I think they're a 9-win team? I don't necessarily think that, but I think they're going to be much improved on offense this year. I think their line will be better. Their scheme will be better for Sellers. Again, the Baylor offense that Briles runs, the same thing that Tennessee does. You're going to spread receivers wide. You're going to have 6 people in the box on defense the way that they spread you. I look for a much improved South Carolina offense. I think they can get to 7 wins in a bowl game, maybe 8 as a ceiling. But they're going to be much improved over last year's team. I mean, you got to take into consideration last year's team came within a possession of beating Alabama and also beating Texas A&M. If they improve just a little bit, they win those type of games. So I will go opposite on that. I think Sellers is going to have a good year. I think Briles will give him, drafted probably a 3rd-round type draft pick for Sellers, and I look for their offense to be much improved. Clayton White, good defensive coach, good defense will be there again. I think they'll win 7-8 games. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I'm thinking they're probably going to be around 500, maybe 7-5. I just am not sold on Lenore Sellers. I wasn't last year either. I mean, he had year before that he was fantastic, but he to me he looks more fits more the athlete mold instead of like a true quarterback mold, because he's extremely athletic, big, fast, strong. Not the best touch, not the best touch downfield. Part of that too is offensive line. It's tough to make those throws when you've got defensive ends and linebackers breathing down your neck. But something that they got to work on there. I like South Carolina to improve a little bit. I like them. I think they'll be bowl eligible for sure. 6 or 7 wins. DMAC.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they have the talent to be a 6-6 team. But the Shane Beamer effect loses you 2 games right off the bat.
So DMAC, let me ask you, what are they saying about Nick Harbor there? Because he was a one of the most highly recruited players in the country when he was coming out, and it was down to LSU and South Carolina. South Carolina beat LSU out for him. What are they saying about him? Like, is he going to be the stud everybody thought he was going to be this year, or?
He had a decent year last year, 30 catches, 618 yards, 6 touchdowns. I think they're going to have to depend on him even more this year, because if you look at guys they brought in out of the portal, they brought in Nitro Tuggle, who's been a few places, Jaden Gibson from Oklahoma, who was a really good guy coming out of high school. But I don't think he's had a meaningful snap of college football since 2023. You saw how the injured guy from Oklahoma panned out for the LSU Tigers last year. It doesn't work. So outside of Nick Harbor, I don't know if they have another, solid wide receiver. Jaden Sellers, Lenore's little brother, may be the next best guy on in that wide receiver room. And I'm sure as we talk about other wide receiver rooms tonight and over the next few weeks, you take out Nick Harbor and this is probably your 16th wide receiver room. Even with him as talented as he can be, I don't know how much one guy rises the stock of a room, especially when you're going to have poor offensive line play again this year.
I mean, if it's a Jamar Chase type guy that gets you, 90 catches, 1,700 yards, and 20 touchdowns, yeah. But a guy with 30, 600, and a couple tutties, no. He's got potential. He's obviously world class track speed. I think he still runs track, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe that's where he ends up when all is said and done, is running track instead of playing football.
And back to the quarterback position, you got to have a quarterback who can get him the ball. And I don't think South Carolina has that.
We'll find out.
He had almost 700 yards in a Mike Shula offense. I mean, again, when is the last time Mike Shula had a good offense?
I don't know that he ever had one. I mean, frankly, but it's
exactly. So can he increase that to 900 in a Kendall Briles type offense where you're going 4 wide, creating man-to-man, matchups? I think he can, and I think Sellers.
I think he can too. I'm just looking at it like this. I don't think that I don't think that Harbor is going to be what he was thought to be. I don't think Sellers is that great at getting his receivers the ball. It's just my opinion, and I've been wrong several times. Maybe wrong on this one this year, but I wasn't last year.
So I wish for South Carolina's sake that debating Nicholas Harbor was my biggest doubt on this team, because I think he is fine. I think he would thrive at a bunch of schools in the SEC.
Yeah.
I just think that he's the best player on offense for this team, and the second best player is way below him at this school. You're looking at, and don't want to trash any players. I think Matt Fuller is going to be a solid running back this year. But you're talking about those are your top two guys on offense. Maybe you throw in Peck, the offensive lineman, or Peak, the offensive lineman, but they're very, they don't have many names that I would ever see called upon in a draft on this offense.
Did Peak get hurt in the offseason?
He did, and there is the potential that he may be out for the season.
Yeah, didn't he hurt his knee playing pickup ball or something?
They're still hopeful though. If they lose him too,
that's a huge loss.
You are talking about another transfer, Armando Neves from New Mexico State, being the next guy up at that tackle position. So it's not looking good for the Gamecocks, especially on the offensive line.
I'm not familiar with his game, but I am familiar with Peak's. And Peak is a ball player. Just silly to lose a season over pickup basketball. Damn.
But
and that will
let me take you back.
That will affect that whole offensive line too, and the offense in general. You missing your left tackle, that's just a really big miss. I'm liking my six more and more.
Let me take you back to an offense that will be very similar to South Carolina's with Kendall Briles in the SEC. So KJ Jefferson didn't finish strong his last 2 years, right? But if you look at his first couple of years that he played, redshirt freshman year, redshirt sophomore year, under Briles, he threw for 2,700 yards twice. Took LSU, scored 31 on LSU, took them to the wire, 24 TDs, rushed for 640 yards and 9 scores, 21 TDs 1 year, 4 interceptions. And do you think Sellers is more talented than KJ Jefferson? I do. Without Briles, Jefferson really struggled at Arkansas, went to UCF and didn't even start at UCF. So again, I think this offense under Briles with Sellers and Harbor, I think they will be better. Are they going to score 35 a game? No. Are they going to move the ball and put points on the board, score in the 20s, win some games, be much better than last year? I think so. I think Sellers is a much better talent-wise quarterback than KJ Jefferson. I'm trying to think of a receiver that played for the Titans in the pros that was at Arkansas and was drafted by Tennessee. Oh. And I think same similar situation. He was basically had one side of the field for Arkansas, and they didn't have a lot of wide receivers under him. I'm trying to look it up right now. And so again, you're looking at the very similar type, scenario there. And I think South Carolina has a chance to be better. And South Carolina will have a better defense than that Arkansas team. Of course, that Arkansas team didn't win many games.
I know once we get to closer to fall, we'll make predictions, but I'm going to throw 5 and 7 out for South Carolina this year.
I'm 6 and 6.
Traylon Burks.
Kev, you're 7 or 8?
I'm going 7 and 5 with an absolute ceiling of 8 and 4. Traylon Burks, and he was actually a first-round draft pick.
Traylon Burks, yep. Is he still in the league? I don't know.
I don't think he is. But he got first round and he got money. So
yep. He did. He got paid. Well,
Well,
that'll go ahead and take us to. Or anything else on South Carolina, fellas?
no, we can shift to another team here.
Kev, go ahead and jump in with the Auburn Tigers. Tell us about the Plains.
All right. So let me start with their coaching change. Alex Golich from the University of South Florida, coached under Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Also coached at Iowa State. Was an offensive coordinator there. He's been some good places. Learned football. I think he's a very good coach, and I think some of the moves that he made in the offseason were very interesting. And again, he's going to run a very similar offense as Heupel at Tennessee. We talked about Briles. 4 wide receivers. He's going to stretch. They're going to go sideline to sideline. They're going to, have a running game to try to get fewer people in the box. Very similar. Good defensive. He believes in having a good defense from a philosophical standpoint. So I think he was a great hire. Arkansas tried to hire him. He kind of stayed mum there, and Auburn came after him, and he took that job. So I think he's probably the best coach that Auburn will have had since Gus Malzahn. But here's where I think their opportunities are going to lie. Obviously, he's looking at building his culture his way at Auburn because he brought a lot of players from South Florida with him. And so the question that I have is, what level of players are they going to be when you compare them to SEC talent? Defensively, they're going to be good. Got a lot of good defensive players from the last year's team, and that stayed, and they kept the defensive coordinator. So with DJ Durkin, so I think defensively they're going to be one of the best teams in the SEC, very similar to last year. Jared Smith, I think, is a sophomore that will take a big jump for him on defense. Their secondary, their linebackers will still be good, even though they lost a couple of linebackers. I think they'll be good there. I want to flip back to the defense in a minute, but I want to go over to the offensive side because here's where I think they're going to struggle. If you look at Auburn the last 5 years, they've been a very good defensive team. Durkin's done a good job with their defense. But their offense has struggled, and I see that no different this year. They've struggled at the quarterback position, which has caused them to – and their offensive line, which has caused them to struggle offensively. So when I look at their talent on the offensive side, let's just start at wide receiver, which is the biggest changes that they had. You lost Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, Perry Thompson, Eric Singleton, Horatio Fields. Singleton will be a starter for Florida, started at Georgia Tech before Auburn. Cam Coleman's going to go to Texas and probably be a first-round draft pick next year. Malcolm Simmons is going to play good for someone somewhere. Singleton, Coleman, and Simmons all have NFL-type talent. And you replaced them with Chris Nimrod, Keyshawn Singleton, Jeremiah Kroger, the 3 wide receivers from South Florida. So you take NFL talent and you replace that with guys that didn't even play in a Power 4 conference, and you expect that offense to be better. I don't think so. You look at quarterback, Byron Brown. I think he's a talented guy, but again, when you're stepping up from a South Florida team to an SEC team, that's a big step. So just look at him against some good competition. So against Alabama 2 years ago, 15 of 35 for a little over 100 yards. Last year against Miami, his numbers weren't terrible. Yards were good, 20 out of 36, 1 TD, 1 interception, 274 yards. A lot of those yards, though, once that game was decided, South Florida scored 12 points. 12 points. They did win against Florida, 23 out of 36, interception, 263 yards. Again, not bad numbers. Offense scored 18 points. And remember, 7 of those points came late in the game when Florida got a penalty for the player spitting on the other player from the other team. Florida had 11 penalties. So, again, 12 points, 18 points, under 20 points against Alabama, So against good competition, Brown to me has been very average at quarterback. And you're going to give him receivers that are not SEC quality receivers. And then let's talk about the offensive line. It's basically an all new group from different places. And again, you don't have SEC game experience with this offensive line. And the right tackle missed spring. So I think when you look at this team, look, I commend him. He's going to bring culture in. He's going to set the example. This is how we do things. But I think it's going to bring the same results that they've had the last 4 or 5 years of a 5-7 type team with a 4-8 possibility, and at best a 6-6, and the frustration of we've got a great defense, we have a very average quarterback or to below average quarterback, and a poor offense. That's where I think they're gonna end up. Jake Johnson is their transfer at tight end that they took. He's only played for about 4 teams and really never stood out anywhere he's been, whether it was Carolina playing with his brother or A&M or the other schools that he went to. Running back is their best position on offense. Jeremiah Cobb, I think, is a good player. Nomar Madsen, shows potential. But again, if that offensive line can't get anything done, what does that do for them? Joe Simmons is their slated, left tackle starter. Stanton Ramil, who missed spring, is the right tackle. Cole Best, Cole Skinner, Derek Plaz. These are guys that did not start at Auburn last year. So I just see this as a very similar team to what they've had the last 2 years, with a really good defense and a very poor offense. Just let me hit on defense just for 2 seconds and I'll be done. Again, Jared Smith, I think he'll take a big step. He'll be good. They did bring Deshaun Womack from Ole Miss. Again, a very talented guy, but has not really put big numbers up. So we'll see how that goes. Jordan Crawford in the middle and Dallas Walker at the defensive tackle, nose tackle. Cody Sigler is a senior there. And Walter Mathis transferred from LSU for depth in the middle. So I think their defensive line overall will be good. Xavier Atkins, probably the best linebacker in the SEC. He had a great year last year. He's only going to be better. Elijah Melendez, who was a freshman last year, played a lot. So again, great linebackers in this group. From that, Rayshawn Pleasant, Caleb Harris in the secondary, Anthony Champ, Andre Jordan, all experienced guys. Jordan's a transfer. Sylvester Smith, he played in the secondary last year and played a lot. He's their nickelback. So across the board, good defense, a lot of experience. Expect their defense to be really good, but I just don't think their offense is going to get them enough points. I think Golish is a great hire, but I think we're going to continue to see the same Auburn that we've seen the last 5 years. Your thoughts, anybody?
Yeah, so I know Byron Brown did not have the game he wanted in their little spring game. Man, I would throw you out there, Kevin, and you would be an upgrade from what they had last year. I don't think the wide receiver drop in talent is going to be as big of an issue. And here's why I think that. Their 3 projected starters bring in 111 catches, 2,000 yards, and 20 touchdowns from the guy throwing them the football last year at South Florida. So when you don't have that talent level of a Cam Coleman or a Eric Singletary, you have to hone in on them being familiar together, playing together last year. I don't think this is going to be a top 5 offense by any means in the SEC, but compared to last year's offense, I think this offense will be a lot better. Even with some of the question marks at offensive line, I would take Byron Brown and these 3 wide receivers from South Florida over what they had any day last year. And the running back room, with Cobb and Mapson is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think this offense is much better than last year, without a doubt. And then one guy I want to shout out on defense while we're talking about Auburn is Fagans, the safety who was a freshman last year. I think he could be poised for a really big role whether it's as a rotational guy or winning winning a starting safety spot, as they get into fall camp. But I like this Auburn team. I was a little higher on them than I should have been last year, but I think I'm right on the money this year.
Auburn, they overhauled the offensive line. They've got their little veer and shoot offense where Golish wants to, he's a big tempo guy. He's is it elite tempo? Is that the term he likes to use when describing his offensive style? Yeah, I don't think Auburn's offense. I think they're going to struggle a little bit this year for both those reasons. One, because the offensive line is all new. They haven't played much together. This is the SEC, big boy football. So I don't think that's going to go as well as they hope. And then, two, when you're bringing in a whole new system and going from I guess a quote unquote normal offense to something where they're trying to, get plays in every, 14 seconds or whatever it is, it has an effect on the players. So we'll see if they're able to take hold of that elite tempo offense and do something with it. I don't think so, at least early. I see Auburn's offense struggling, and we'll see how it goes as the year goes on. So wins, losses. What did you guys have for Auburn for wins and losses, Kev?
Again, I'm going to go 5-7 tops, and I'm not going to be surprised if they go 4-8. Again, D-Mac, you referenced the potential for their offense to be better. Those guys had good numbers against the North Texas, who was a good team but gave up points. The South Texas, San Antonio, the Memphises, the UABs, the Rices of the world. Those are not SEC teams. I'll just say, to that, it's great to have heart, and it's great to have great work ethic and practice standards. But again, you don't take a quarter horse to the Kentucky Derby. You got to have a stallion that's going to win that race. And you're not going to win games in the SEC with wide receivers that are not really talented. If you run 4.6, you can be a great route runner, but you're going to get covered in the SEC. And that offensive line, I see them giving up a lot of pressures and a lot of sacks. So I think 4-8, 5-7, and I think you're going to hear screams from the plains about our offense sucks again.
D-Mac?
I'm going 8-4, and Kurt Cignetti's taken a lot of quarter horses to the Kentucky Derby here recently.
I love it, D-Mac.
Now, how did Cignetti do year one, though? Now, granted, he won a lot of games, but as soon as he played quality competition, when they played Ohio State, they got totally exposed on the talent level. And against Notre Dame, they were absolutely inept in the playoffs. So yes, he brought those James Madison guys, but when they played real talent, they could not step up to that. It wasn't until he brought Fernandez and this bunch of 25-year-olds that they actually, won things. And again, Cignetti's your unicorn, okay? Everybody can throw Cignetti out there, but he's not the norm.
No, he certainly isn't. But I think when people bring up Cignetti, they're just saying it can be done because everybody's talking. It's going to take it's a 2-3 year rebuild. Why? Why is it a 3-year rebuild with the transfer portal and the ability to transfer? Apparently mid-season almost. It's silly that it should take that long. These coaches. If you're paying a guy $10 million, he needs to be better than, or $8 million. He needs to be better than 4 wins. Yeah, that's just my opinion. And Kev, I'm with you. I think that Auburn's closer to 4 than 8. So I'll go ahead and say I just took a peek at their schedule, so I'm kind of cheating here. I think that Auburn wins 5. 5 games. That's mine. 5-7.
So they're not bowl eligible again. Look, the Auburn fans are, they're excited. They think, hey, we're bringing these guys in, the culture, and it's going to change. Okay.
Now, if Auburn does go 5-7, does all hell break loose down there?
That's just a dysfunctional group. They got to give him 2 years, but it's a dysfunctional group.
Yeah, I don't think
I personally thought he should have kept Bruce Knight and played for year 2, but he didn't. But go ahead, Sweet.
No, I just said I don't think that he'll get fired if he goes 5-7, but I think that
Oh no.
I think there'll be a lot of
No.
unhappy people. That's not the expectation, and nor should it be. Honestly, I mean, the man's making whatever, 8-9 million a year. Give us a winner. Give us at least 500. Brian Kelly. Sorry about that, D-Mac. Where were you?
No, we're good. I'm gonna make another bold prediction. Auburn wins the Iron Bowl this year.
That's I mean
That's in Tuscaloosa.
that
No.
that's stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. I like it though. I like it. The 8-4 is.
I will say their defense will contain Alabama's offense. I will go with you there. I just don't think their offense will do anything. Sweet, who you rolling with tonight?
I'll go ahead and talk about Texas A&M. The Aggies this year coming in with Coach Elko leading the charge there. Got Heisman candidate Marcel Reed coming back, and he will be in the Heisman race like he was last year. I think somebody on the show called that out, but I can't remember who it was. What a lucky guess. Anyhow, I like Texas A&M and what they did in the offseason. They got Isaiah Horton from Alabama, and he's gonna be their big play receiver, replacing D-Mac's favorite receiver, Casey Concepcion, who did get screwed out of Player of the Week a few times last year. I have no problem admitting that. They got Anto Saka, defensive end from Northwestern. Very excited about him in the spring. Tyree Adams and Cone Eccles, they brought over 2/5 of the LSU offensive line at one point or another. And I don't know if either of those guys will start over there, but they certainly will see the field. D-Mac, you're turning red, buddy. You okay over there?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Did I say something funny?
You did.
Tell me which was funny about that, because I want a good laugh. I need one.
It was the 2/5.
Oh, I mean, I get them where you can. Maybe they can develop then where we couldn't. I don't know. I do like Texas A&M and where they stand. I love Ruben Owens at running back. I think that Texas A&M is going to be competitive again this year. Looking at a possible playoff berth. Didn't look at their schedule, so I'm not going to cheat, but I will say Texas A&M is going to be a 9 to 10 win team, and that's going to depend on keeping Marcel Reed upright. Marcel Reed, not the biggest quarterback, so we'll see if he can stand up to a full SEC season again. I like Texas A&M 9-10 wins, and that will put them on the cusp of the playoffs there. D-Mac, any thoughts on Texas A&M?
Yeah, I like this Texas A&M team. You mentioned Ruben Owens at running back. Remember the name Jamarian Morrow, who started playing more as the season progressed as a freshman last year. I think he's poised for a huge sophomore campaign. Ashton Bethel Roman is probably the best catching receiver from big play and fancy catches since Odell Beckham Jr. played for LSU back in the day. That guy makes some incredible plays. On defense, one guy, Noah McKell, has really been shining in spring for him. I like this team a lot. I love the addition of Ricky Gibson too at corner from Tennessee. He was a guy I was really high on last year who battled some injury at Tennessee, but great team. I'm with you. Probably, I'm gonna say 9's the floor. 10 is probably where they're gonna be. I think the Aggie 8-4 may be past them these days moving forward. Elko has them on the right path.
Kev, I'm gonna jump to you, but I just taking a peek at their schedule real quick. Gosh, I'm thinking they should probably get to 10 wins, at minimum 9. Gosh, I mean they've got Texas at home, which is good, but they got Chokey, they play on the road. They got Tennessee at home, and they've got LSU in Baton Rouge. those will be the tough games, and then the Bama game. But Bama just isn't as scary as they used to be anymore. I like I said, Texas A&M is going to be right there again this year. I don't think they're a national championship team, but I do think they compete for a playoff spot. Kev, jump in there.
All right, so here's my big question mark for Texas A&M. Colin Klein, Holloman Wiggins.
Yep. Big
Colin
loss.
Klein, one of the best offensive coordinators in college football last year, head coach at Kansas State, proven OC when he was at K-State before he went to A&M. What was he proven at? Dual threat quarterback offense. He was the perfect coordinator for their quarterback and their offense.
Yep.
And you're replacing him with a guy that's not been an offensive coordinator that is supposed to carry that on. Huge mistake, in my opinion. A school like A&M should not be testing an offensive coordinator. I think that was a big mistake to not go out by Elko and get a proven guy, and I think they'll pay for that. Again, you're having to, replenish an offensive line with a new offensive coordinator, and you lost the wide receiver from transfer from Concepcion, maybe the best wide receiver in the SEC last year. You keep Craver, so there's still talent there. And Bethel Wiggins, I mean, you mentioned him. He's good. But I just think they're going to have a step back. And, again, you're playing teams like Texas is really good. You're going on the road to Oklahoma. You can win that game. You're also going on the road to Missouri, at South Carolina, at Alabama, and at LSU. So, those road games right there, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 road games that are tough. Texas at home, Tennessee at home, at South Carolina. That won't be an easy place to play. D-Mac, you said 8-4 is going away. I think 8-4 is 8-4. I'm going A&M right back where they belong, and the difference is the offensive coordinator. I think Reed takes a small step back, but that's all they'll need is that small step back to be back to 8-4.
It's funny you mentioned him, Kev, because I was going to ask you specifically. I know you're a big Klein guy. This guy does. Do you think that there's any chance that A&M pulls him off of play calling in the middle of the season? Do you think Elko takes the nuclear option if A&M gets, say, to Arkansas, Missouri, and just isn't moving the ball?
I don't think he can. I mean, I don't know who you've got that you're going to give it to. But again, when you look at Wiggins' history, I mean, he's been at Mississippi State, been in Alabama. He's coached at good places, but he's never been a play caller.
Right,
and then he coached there at A&M under Klein. And I just don't see that translating. But I don't see who they're going to give it to if they pull it away from him. I just think they'll struggle through it, and then they'll make a change next year. I do not expect him to be the OC in 2027.
Okay, 8-4. No chance of 7-5, Kev? No chance? Maybe?
Oh, yeah, there's a chance with that schedule to be 7-5.
Okay.
Absolutely. You could lose to Texas. You could lose to Tennessee. You could lose to South Carolina.
Yeah, they could lose
you will lose to Texas. And I think you lose to Texas. I think you lose to LSU for sure. And then between Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, I think you probably lose to Alabama too. 7-5, 8-4. I think A&M's right back to where they were. Marcel
Reed might be laughing at you with the LSU comment, the way he's carved them up for 2 years in a row.
I wish no ill will on that kid. Because I think he's a good football player and all. But I hope, he's just got an upset stomach or something when he plays us and just can't go that day, because he has had his way with us the past 2 years, or the past 6 quarters. Pardon me. He didn't play the first 2 quarters of the game in 24. So
I do know one thing about this Aggie.
Colin Klein. Go ahead.
They are going to be strong, and they're going to be conditioned with the best in the business and Tommy Mama.
Oh. He's good. I'll give him that. But again, going back to Reed and his 2 good games against LSU, best offensive line in the SEC last year. and Colin Klein. That offensive line won't be the same, and his OC is not the same. Not to say that Reed won't be, make some good plays, but it won't be the same. I just don't think it will be. You're going from Colin Klein, who will be a successful head coach, to a guy that's never called an offensive play.
No, there's no doubt. Maybe he surprises. I don't know. I think Texas A&M's talent is that good. I don't think it's a situation, Kev, like the situation LSU went through when we lost Brady, and then Pete's came in behind. I don't think it's going to be that type of drop off, if you will. So I think if he's serviceable, that they have enough talent that they should get 9 wins. There's just an opinion.
All good. That's why we're talking about this stuff.
Any other thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
Go ahead, Kev.
No, that's it. We got some varying degrees in this, but it's all good. That's why we talk about it.
Well, guys,
3 more teams on another day.
Yeah, we will see you guys back on Thursday for a little SEC baseball preview of the upcoming weekend. So remember to like, follow, subscribe,